Congresswoman, I start with you. Your reaction to the developments and the message that the 1-6 committee has sent.
Well, I think this is great developments. I think it's showing that this committee is serious about utilizing the powers that Congress has to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th, and to ensure that it doesn't happen again, whether that is through depositions, through hearings, through subpoenas, sifting through the millions of pieces of evidence that are available, whether that's from social media, the Justice Department, or the White House itself.
Congresswoman, do you understand what Bannon is even trying to exert? I mean, there is no privilege for an ex-president. There's even less for an ex-president's aide who was fired in 2017. What is he trying to argue?
I think what he's trying to do is to delay, and he's trying to show that he's being loyal to Donald Trump. That's about all, because there's absolutely no legal basis for him being able to exert an executive privilege. We've seen that President Biden is the individual who is able to exert executive privilege, and he has stated that he will fully comply with the Select Committee. Additionally, as you stated, of course, Nicolle, he was not even employed by the former president at the time of the January 6th or its planning. So whatever conversation he had could not have been as an employee or part of the executive branch. He's reaching for straws.
Congresswoman, I think about the case that was presented to the United States Senate and that bipartisan vote to impeach Donald Trump and the bipartisan vote to convict Donald Trump, that of course came up short, but was the most bipartisan vote in our country's history. And I often wonder what you and the other managers think when you see some of this testimony being shaken loose, the 8 hours of Mr. Rosen and appearing before the Senate Judiciary Committee, now before the 1-6 committee. What do you think when you see these big pieces of the puzzle start to fall in place?
I think it shows that the foundation and the facts which we presented to the Senate during the trial were in fact corroborated now by clear and convincing evidence that the American people are going to see. And as the Select Committee continues to do the amazing job, the stellar job that it's doing under the leadership of Benny Thompson, the American people are going to understand not just the extent of what happened on that day, but the extent to which the president, our president, tried to thwart and end our democracy.
Matt Miller, you were here at this hour yesterday making some pretty strong arguments for precisely what the committee has gone ahead to do. Talk about the importance and the significance of drawing this line in the sand with the criminal contempt referrals.
You know, I think you can see the significance of it in the way some of the other witnesses are behaving. I think it's pretty significant that Kash Patel and Mark Meadows are actually apparently negotiating with the committee, and at least so far, not just granting former President Trump's blanket request or blanket instructions that they not come forward and testify. Kash Patel is about as bad an actor as you could find in that administration, showed up, which is obviously saying something, showed up in some of the worst abuses of the 4 years. And Mark Meadows is kind of a craven an apologist for Donald Trump as you could find. But both of them are negotiating with the committee, potentially to provide testimony. It may break down. They may find themselves in the same position as Steve Bannon. And what that tells me, at least so far, is that some of the witnesses, these two and potentially others down the road, are looking at what's happening to Bannon and saying, I don't want to go down that road. There are a lot of people who are willing to blow off a congressional subpoena. There are a lot of people willing to stiff arm members of Congress. But the Justice Department coming and threatening criminal charges, or the potential for the Justice Department to throw criminal charges at you, has a way of focusing the mind and putting the fear of God into people in a way that congressional committees don't. And that's why it's so important that the committee hold the line. And it's so important that the Justice Department, when they do get these referrals, that they investigate them quickly and bring people up on charges, because for this committee to be able to get to the bottom of this with these witnesses and others, the witnesses need to know there will be consequences for defying lawful subpoenas.
You know, John Howland, I think of Steve Bannon, and I remember the reporting around his desperation for a pardon from Donald Trump, which of course was granted. But there's no pardon on the line here. If he's held in criminal contempt, he'll have to face the consequences without a literal get-out-of-jail-free card from Donald Trump.
Well, right, Nicolle. I mean, I think the question is for Steve Bannon, is there, I agree with the Congresswoman, if you're analyzing this in a legal sense, there's no logic to what he's doing. I think in a political sense that you have to understand the broader picture of what the president is trying to do right now, which is to transform 1/6 into a day of infamy of a different kind. You know, the president's out telling his followers that the election was stolen from him, that January 6th was not an insurrection, it was a rightful protest. These are patriots who stormed the Capitol. They are now political prisoners. Ashley Babbitt is now a martyr. And in some sense, Steve Bannon putting himself in a position of political martyrdom makes a certain kind of sense if you accept that that is what this is about. And I know a lot of people who are paying close attention to what the president's doing, including me, who see the risks and the dangers involved in that and see what the president, the long game here, and when I say long game, I mean heading to 2022 and 2024, where the president is trying to generate a kind of very scary energy around all of those causes. And I think that Steve Bannon, the president, I think that Steve Bannon is as integral to the president's plans going forward towards 2022 and 2024, setting up the possibility of a second coup. I think he's as integral to those as he was in getting him elected in 2016. So I think there's a logic to this. It's not one that makes sense to any normal people or sane people or people who care about the law or people who care about Congress or care about the future of democracy, but it can make sense to Steve Bannon and Donald Trump.